So, hi everybody. We're here on the final evening of the 8th Milton Film Festival, and we're so pleased to have two Hollywood leading men this evening. So welcome Michael Angelo Covino and Kyle Marvin, who co-star in the funny, lacerating, provocative The Climb, which Michael also directed. So this is a first for both of you. Michael, it's the first time you've directed, and Kyle, unless I miss my guess, this is your first gig as a leading man. Am I right about that?
That is correct. Yes. And, outside of being married. Yeah.
So tell me what that experience was like. Had you acted before? Had you had any experience as an actor?
I thought he was asking what it's like to be married. I was like, this is starting out to be a good Q&A.
Well, yes,
this is going to be a long Q&A.
Yes, exactly. Well, we can talk about that as well.
I mean, for me, yeah, I had done theater obviously when I was younger, but truthfully, when I started, living my life, it was not really an attainable sort of goal to be an actor, nor one that I was willing to be masochistic enough to pursue. So I sort of fell behind the camera in terms of production, physical production and producing. So there was always a love for me of acting, but sort of never really a tangible way to get there until, we wrote an opportunity for ourselves to act in.
So, Michael, was that the idea from the beginning that you and Kyle would co-star in this?
Yeah, I mean, I always knew I would star in it. It was just a question of whether Kyle. I'm sorry. No, it was always for us. I think we made a short film that had a little bit of success.
That's right. Yes.
With the two of us, and I think that was the sort of confidence builder that allowed us to go out and, for us, but also really for a financier to come on and say, we're going to take a chance on you guys, and we feel confident that you two can play the leads. So it was really from day one, it was always, this project was very much like a passion project that was an opportunity for the two of us to be in front of the camera and show just a little bit of kind of the comedic tone that we wanted to go after.
And I should have mentioned earlier that in addition to acting and directing the movie, the two of you worked on the screenplay together. What was that like? What was your two friends? Now you're working on a script together. How was that?
I mean, we had been working together for almost 10 years by that point. So we had sort of like a shorthand in terms of dealing with each other, and we had already worked on another script together, so we had already written together. So right. I think we had a pretty good shorthand by the time we got into this process. And really, the cool thing was because we were the ones in the short, and we knew we were going to be the ones performing, or at least we assumed we were going to be the ones performing it. The way we wrote it was almost like a play in a way, because we would write a scene out and then we would go perform it in our acting class and put it up and see how it worked, or grab a couple friends and just try it out. So it was a really sort of tangible, interactive process of script, of screenwriting, because we really wanted to nail it before we got into production, due to the complexity of the long runners.
So Michael, and both of you use your real names in the film, which makes it all that much more interesting and a little more provocative, and makes anybody watching the film initially thinking, gee, did Michael sleep with Kyle's fiance?
Yeah.
This is why we may have to talk about marriage. But it turned out, if I've got it right, Michael, that it was another friend who ended up with a former girlfriend of yours that inspired all of this.
The original idea came from that sort of like that pure sort of kernel of an idea was from just an experience I had with that, which wasn't really traumatic in any way to me, but was just more of something that I contemplated on while I would ride my bike. I would go on a long bike ride and think about it, and out of that kind of came this situation that we thought was really fun to explore, just in a very
yes.
It's just two people talking, and and yet hopefully it'll be super captivating and interesting. And so that was really the foundation for the whole thing. And then as we would rehearse it, we would write it and rehearse it and start to get into it. We thought, wow, these characters really have an interesting dynamic between one another. And that blossomed into, even before we shot the short, we said, oh, these characters are who they are to each other. And that's always going to be the case, even over the rest of their lives. So what other situations will they find themselves in? And how would this relationship always, find a way to survive no matter what you threw at it?
Does the film have any relation to the friendship of the two of you, though?
I mean, I think not.
Are you
really,
guys like this in
honest.
real life?
Yeah, I am.
No.
I am. Kyle's not. No.
No, I think we have a really healthy relationship. But and the way that we interact with each other. But I think you can't help but mine your own sort of personal experience. So I think we pulled a lot from things. We talk to each other all the time, and like in those conversations, we would just hit on certain things, and that we would just be talking about our friendships with, not just with other guys, with girls or with parents or what just other relationships. And we would sort of tap into the things that we found really funny or interesting. And those really became, sorry, I'm in my car with my dog. Okay. Those became a really great foundation for the characters. And so they're sort of fabrications, but of course they are pieces of us always. So
I never slept with his wife. No.
Oh, okay. Okay, well that's
where you're going. I like to think it's still on the table, but
yeah. The Climb 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Documentary.
But it does. I mean, again, I know that you wanted to be a bit provocative with the film, and it does raise questions when you use your own names in the film. Was that always the idea?
Yeah, I think the idea was always to play heightened caricatures of maybe one trait that we might have in our personalities, or a trait that we wanted to explore, or a vice or a virtue, and there was something, I think when we made the short, we just used our own names because we thought it would be fun, and we just kept it for the feature because we thought it would be even more fun. And so, it was truly just, part of it was, I guess, sure, to be provocative. Part of it was because why come up with other names for characters that we really liked, kind of embodying as this is Mike and this is Kyle, even though that's clearly not who we are. And I think through the process, we really learned a lot about ourselves, and that was, so while maybe I think I realized I'm less like that character than maybe I thought I was at the beginning of making this thing. I think, I don't know. I think the self-reflective nature of making this film and looking into relationships from the past felt like a fitting place to kind of name the characters after ourselves.
Right. Let me ask you this. If what happens in the film had happened to the two of you in real life, do you think your friendship would have survived? In the movie, it survives.
That's a great question. I don't think anyone's asked us this yet. It's a good one.
I think I think now, yeah, because our work is so closely tied, so we don't really have an option.
Ron, you are not helping. You are not helping with his decision-making process. I'm trying to sleep with my wife. You're only.
No, I think now, we're stuck to each other because we've got so many projects together and we're making other movies together, and so it's like it'd be hard to cut the umbilical cord now.
Also, the funny thing is and it's sort of something we touched upon in the movie, which is that time sort of, it's such a cliche thing to say, but time sort of heals all wounds in a weird way. In that I feel like it might break us apart longer than the Mike and Kyle characters in the movie stayed apart, but I feel like at some point we'd get over it. I'd get over it.
It does bring up a lot of questions and a lot of thinking about the dynamics of male friendships in an age which doesn't pay a whole lot of attention to male friendships. I mean, this is one of, I think back watching The Climb and all those buddy movies that were made, male buddy movies that were made in the 70s and the 80s, that you don't see anymore. I wonder what you guys think in terms of male friendships and the endurance of them, as opposed to, I don't know, relationships with wives and girlfriends and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think, we always think about it in terms of just like relationships with people you have a really sort of tremendous affinity for. And so, for us, this was one of those relationships that was never going to be fully explained on the screen. We never really wanted to fully explain why these guys are so close and why they're tied together, because most of the time, the people who you're closest to, it'd actually be tough to figure out why you feel so attached to them, because a lot of the attachment, a lot of the attachment comes from, like your formative years when you experience things with that person, and you share these sort of distant memories that maybe are part of how you define who you are. And so I think like it ties a lot into like one's identity, and sometimes letting go of like a closest friend from childhood is letting go of a piece of your identity. And maybe we struggle to hold on to the past, or we struggle to hold on to that identity. So we latch onto those friends. And that is true for, for male and female friends, for female and female friends, for two guys who are friends. It's really, I think it's universally true with relationships. It's just, this relationship wasn't exploring one of a romantic nature, or one of an overtly romantic nature. So I think there's less pressure on relationships that are not sort of romantic on the surface, because you don't have that additional sort of jealousy component that comes in.
There's been, I'm jumping ahead of myself here a little bit, but since we're talking about this, there has been some criticism leveled at the movie for its depiction of women, and I'm wondering how you guys feel about that.
What articles are you reading?
I think the New York Times had
oh, interesting. Yeah, I read that. I mean, I think what's funny is one of the more surprising things that we've had we've played the film now at like film festivals all over the world, and we did it in person, and it played at Cannes and Toronto and Telluride and Sundance, and one of the things that we found most enjoyable was women coming up to us after the screening and really responding very strongly to the film. And so like my benchmark for how, look, we set out to tell a story about two guys who are friends, right? So there's never ever going to be a world in which there wasn't a masculine point of view to the film, and to try to shy away from that, or to try to solve that problem it feels a bit disingenuous to me as a filmmaker, because it's like there are going to be films that have male point of views and female point of views. This just happens to be one that we're telling about a friendship between two guys. But what we did really try to do is write female characters that stood their ground and had their own that were true to themselves and had their own points of view and their own needs and their own wants. And so the Marissa character, for instance, who Kyle gets engaged to, when we wrote that character, we talked a lot about if this film was being told from a different perspective, if it was being told from her perspective, I'd be the villain, and she would be completely justified and warranted in everything she had going on, and I would be this just terrible guy who kept interjecting himself. But that's not the film. And so the beauty was to set up a character like her and just sort of in a very sort of one-dimensional way say, oh, she's just terrible, but not explain why she's terrible. And then find out as the movie goes on that actually she's not that terrible. She's just someone with wants and needs who's trying to figure out her own life. And maybe we as the audience and the family and everyone else was wrong in our sort of, let's just push her to the side as this sort of terrible ex-girlfriend who's re-entered his life. And so, whether or not a critic or someone viewing the film picks up on that or not, or thinks it's worthwhile or anything, is not for us to say. But I can tell you with certainty that our intention was always to give everyone, with the little screen time they had, their, earnest and real intentions and desires and wants.
No, I think you've again done the right thing. It's again, it's just unusual in this day and age to see this kind of male-centric movie, and
it's funny. I think it's partially comedy. The thing is that I feel like there are a pretty level grounded sort of continuation of great movies, even male friendship specific movies in the dramatic, side of cinema. But I think it's true that in comedy, they sort of took a turn in the 90s into this other sort of like, higher sort of almost cliche jokey nature of male friendship, and sort of got off track a little. As a general rule, it's hard to say all cinema, because there's obviously things that break the mold constantly. But I think for us, we were more interested in the sort of, like you were mentioning, the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s sort of tone of how male friendships were viewed in the comedy on screen.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about how the film was shot, and I was saying to Kyle before we went on, the most amazing sequence to me in a film full of amazing sequences, and I gather it's it is 7 chapters, and which they're each shot in basically in a single shot, and there's no more an amazing sequence, I think, than that opening sequence in which the two of you are riding up the side of a mountain, spouting lots of important dialogue, getting to the top, threatening to kill each other. Michael ends up on the side of the road being beaten up by a French motorist, and it's all done in one shot. What was it like to shoot that? Difficult?
Tiring.
Yeah.
Very, very, very tiring and exhausting. I mean, we shot that in the south of France.
Oh, you did shoot it in the south of France, huh?
Yeah, so we shot that in the south of France, and we had already started filming in New York. So we flew to France in the middle of like week 1 of shooting, and landed, scouted, we had found the location earlier, but went there, rehearsed, and then we had 2 days to rehearse, get it, and then shoot it. And it was just a lot of moving pieces. It was just very difficult to get everything to work all at once in one take, because you would get 60% of it right, and then one thing would go wrong. And that kind of became the recipe for the whole film, was just how do we get all the pieces to come together perfectly one time.
The interesting thing was it was so early on in the process. I mean, it was the second shot, the second scene we shot, and there was something great about it, because it had so many unknown variables that by the time we got done with that one, there was sort of this level of confidence that, like, okay, we could do the next one, because it's not going to have as many moving parts as like French speaking crew and a hillside where, I don't know if French motorists in the rural parts of France, but they do not like to be stopped on their roads in the middle of the day. So like there were so many variables going on that one, that I think by the time we got done with that, there was sort of a level of confidence that we could overcome as many any obstacles that future scenes were going to put in our way, which they did.
And Kyle, as a novice actor, what was that like? I mean,
to see
up the side of a mountain, try to remember dialogue,
yeah. I mean, I'd like to say I'm a master, but really all it happened is that you're so physically, you're being so much physical stress is on yourself in that process, that you kind of have to lose your ego and lose your self-awareness and just sort of fall into the character. There's no chance for pretense, because your body's undergoing such a physical sort of demand. You're sort of forced almost to be a better actor in a way, because you're not paying attention to yourself or concentrating on what you're saying.
Famously, Orson Welles shot the opening sequence of Touch of Evil in one long shot. which many people, of course, have imitated since then. And I mean, it has been done before, but I believe at the time that was the longest opening sequence that had ever been shot in a movie. You guys have outdone it this time with the 9-minute opening sequence, I'm sure. But one of the reasons that Wells always said he did it that way was to save money, that he was under a lot of pressure, behind schedule. So he just did that all in one shot and saved himself all sorts of money. Was that, Michael, was that anything to do with how you shot The Climb?
I don't know that shooting it this way saved us any money, because we would spend a lot of times in preparation, and we'd have to carry the whole crew the whole time. But I would say that shooting the film this way allowed us to put the money where like it mattered, and I think you know, if we shot a couple of long takes in this film, we probably would have saved a lot of money, because we still could have shot the other stuff a bit more traditionally. But because of the nature, like it probably all came out in the wash. I think the whole difference for us was just the process was so different. It was just such a different way of filming. You weren't rushing through the day and marching and trying to switch setups and turning around and moving into coverage. And we weren't, you know, it wasn't that feeling of, okay, I'm only going to get 3 or 4 takes and then that's it. You know, and if I don't get it, then I don't get my performance the way I want it. It was like, no, we're going to do 25 takes, and let's hope that by the end you'd nail it every time, and we figured out what, you know, performance wise. So it felt a bit more like doing a play over and over again.
I feel like Orson Welles was just trolling everyone. I feel like he really just wanted to do an epic long shot, and then when he got done, he said it was to save money.
It's like all those movie stories.
Yeah, exactly.
John Ford ripping 6 pages out of the script when he was told behind. So who knows?
Yeah, exactly. It's great. It's part of the lore. Let's leave it there.
The mythology of the movies. So
totally.
But speaking of money and time and making an independent film, I've got to ask you this question. The Climb, you've got 15 producers, including yourselves, listed.
We have 3 producers, right? 3. There's only 3 producers.
Well, yeah, executive producers included.
Right. You got 15 listed on.
Yes.
And then in Kicks, filmed in 2016, there are 32 producers. There are more producers listed than there are cast members. What is it with that? Why all the producers? Were you on the set of The Climb and 15 guys and women showed up and started to say, "Oh, Michael, maybe you should put the camera over here"? I mean, what do these people do?
No, so I mean, on The Climb, we only had three producers. We had me, Kyle, and Noah, and then the rest were executive producers or associate producers or co-producers, which you know, I guess can mean a number of things. Usually, the executive producers are involved with the money or some aspect of bringing in cast or something like that. Co-producers maybe handle one specific thing or also are involved with the money, but less money. I don't know. And then associate producers are just credits we gave out to people who went above and beyond on the film and kind of worked longer than they should have and harder than they should have and pulled more of their weight, you know, in the role that they were given on the film.
It's funny, in lieu of, like, you know, in the old system, there would just be money, you know, there would just be the money from the studio. And then, you know, your producers would be producers. But it's, you know, in this day and age, everyone's got to pull their weight. And the only commodity you really have in independent film outside of, you know, money is those kind of credits. So you have to use them at your, as you see fit to try and build value for your film.
So we do have a question from our viewing audience. So Carmen Martino has asked, what inspired the band in the ice fishing scene? Very good question.
I think we originally had written this scene for the Gravediggers that we love, these sort of like these cemetery workers all singing together. And we knew we wanted to have like a counterpoint scene to that later in the film. And we had written this ice fishing scene, and knew that there was a really nice transitional moment there that we could have people singing, and there's like a big, there's little pockets of upstate New York that have like Ukrainian communities. And so, Kyle just went online and found these Ukrainian singers who lived out in Brooklyn, and reached out to them, and we convinced them to come up to upstate New York and come shoot with us, and they were brilliant. But that,
you can see
really,
them.
Yeah,
you can see them performing at the Russian Samovar in Manhattan whenever it's back open.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a live performance.
They're pretty great though. We're big fans.
What a world. I can talk to you in your car, Kyle, and you can find Ukrainian folk singers online. I mean,
That's right.
Exactly right.
So we have another question, and somebody obviously knows, Kathy knows a bit of what Michael has been up to here. I was going to mention this earlier, and we got talking about other things, but Michael, I don't think I'm giving too much away by saying that you're also very prominent in the new Tom Hanks movie, News of the World, in which you give Tom a very, very difficult time. Somebody has asked, what was it like? I'm sure you get this all the time. What was it like working with Tom Hanks in News of the World?
I thought Kathy was going to ask me, and I was just going to say I didn't. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
It was great.
The next movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's amazing. It was one of those childhood dreams that just sort of that came to life. I found myself on the side of a mountain shooting guns, with Tom Hanks in like a, in a real cowboy shootout, and he's a delightful, really nice guy who takes time to like kind of talk to and get to know anyone who's in front of him. So it was very eye-opening to see how people do it at the highest level and still stay grounded and stay humble and stay interested in other people, because you could expect someone who's that big of a movie star to just be disinterested in anyone who's around them, and the fact that I even got the chance to get to know him is pretty cool.
Had you shot The Climb before you did News of the World?
Yeah, we shot The Climb. The Climb had already premiered. It premiered at Cannes in 2019, so May that year, and then I shot this in September, October of 2019.
So from making an independent film to doing a big Hollywood production with starring Tom Hanks, can you talk about the differences?
The biggest difference was there was way more horses on the big Hollywood movies, I noticed. We only had like 3 ponies in the background of the
they're miniature ponies. Yeah.
One of my criticisms, my only criticism of The Climb would be the lack of horses.
We get that a lot.
First person.
We get that a lot.
I bet.
No, I think the process is very similar. When you really boil down what movie making is about, the process really comes down to, roll sound, roll camera, say your lines or do the action or do the thing. And that can scale up, and scale down depending on what the shot is. But I think, even with that film, the more I realize, after seeing it, it's like the entire thing hinges upon actors emoting in front of camera and an audience believing those emotions and caring about them. And, that's why Tom Hanks is such a special actor, because, you can put a camera in front of him and he can break down, or he can have a moment and you really believe it and you're really there with him. And so I think it was refreshing, because like with all the bells and whistles and the money and the stunts and all those things, that is the spectacle that maybe gets put in the trailer and excites you. But what at the end of the day makes you care about a film is just performance and emotion and story. So yeah.
Well, I must say, the moment you show up on the screen, that Tom's in big trouble. You're very convincing in that role.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a dream to play a bad guy. I mean, I've always said I've got the face of a Western villain, so I might as well try to go make that happen.
What was that sort of a breakthrough for you as an actor, getting that part?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it was the first thing I auditioned for after The Climb, and the first big movie I've ever done, you know? So it was a real, yeah, it was amazing from top to bottom. It was the coolest thing I've done in ever, maybe.
Well, you're very, very, very convincing in it.
Oh, thanks.
Years and years ago, when I was a journalist, I interviewed Walter Matthau, and one of the questions I asked him, I said, you know, because he'd been a character actor for many years before he finally became a star, and I asked him, I said, you know, when you were on the set with big stars like Burt Lancaster and Cary Grant, did you ever stand there and think to yourself, geez, I could do this, I could be a star? And to my absolute surprise, he said, yes, I thought that all the time. So, Michael, when you're standing on the set of the News of the World, and you say all these bells and whistles are around you, did you ever stand there as a director yourself and think, shit, I could do this?
Like make a Western and make something big?
You know,
yeah, making big movies doesn't scare me.
A bigger Hollywood.
Yeah. Making big movies doesn't scare me. That's not intimidating at all. I like, to me personally, I don't find it intimidating, because at the end of the day, it's still the same decision-making process. It's still the same priorities. You know, it's like your priorities are where your priorities are, and you know, in terms of what matters, in terms of story and character. And then everything else is just, you know, I look at directing a bit like, you know, like you're a curator. You're someone who's curating the tastes and the talents of other people. So you're hiring really brilliant, talented people. They're doing their work to the best of their ability, and then you're curating that, and you're guiding that into a direction that feels holistic to a point of view. You know, but it's to me, taste is everything with directing. So I have, you know, I think you can't be a good director and not have confidence in your taste, because otherwise what are we doing? You know, so you have to even naively have confidence in your taste and have confidence in your ability to kind of do more than maybe you know how to do, you know, at this moment in time.
So having said all that, what was it like directing Kyle? How difficult was that?
Kyle's like a puppet. You just sort of put your hand up his butt and
I sound like a Muppet, so you're 50% accurate, I think.
Well,
that's the secret of directing a novice actor. Just stick your hand up his butt. And,
well, Kyle, I think Kyle's, you know, Kyle's not really a novice actor. Like I think that's not giving credit to Kyle, because I've worked with actors.
I apologize, Kyle.
No. I don't mean it that way. It's novice in terms of credits. He is a novice actor, but in terms of, like, you know, I've worked with actors who have done way more things. Who, you know, I would be like, okay, well, this is just, you know, this is a challenge. Whereas, you know, with Kyle, he's immensely talented. He's a ridiculously good improviser, and you know, not that we improvise that much in this film, but I think when you have that sort of improvisational mind of just creating in the moment with a snap decision, it really helps, because you can always, that means that's a collaborator who can find things and who can figure out, and who's sort of always, you know, and I think for Kyle and I, it was always about finding honest moments and just making sure that we were never, you know, blowing the whole movie up with a silly moment that maybe took us too out of it. So Kyle was the easiest to direct, because we were a team. We were on the same page making the film. So I didn't have to pull punches. If I was like, look, this isn't working, that's not working, do something else, or let's figure it out, he wouldn't get hurt, because we were just trying to make the same film.
And Kyle, has this now that you've got a taste as not just as an actor, but as a leading man in a film, does this whet your appetite to do more acting?
Absolutely, yeah. I went up for the horse in News of the World and got turned down. But I'm looking for other roles. Yes, I think I've always loved acting, and for me, it's very much like each part of filmmaking has its own sort of magic, and each of them have something that's so addicting to it. And for sure, I got the taste for the joy of performance, and so I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Oh, good stuff. And so this may be a good question to end on. Great movie, says Marie Claire. Loved the theater way of developing the story. Loved the exploration of male friendship. Can't wait for another one. Is it coming soon? So what are you guys up to in the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see when we can shoot it, but yeah, we've written another film, and we've written a television show, and which one we shoot first will really just depend on who greenlights us to do it first. But you know, both of those things are things that Kyle and I are writing and directing, and but not acting in. So we'll have to find our next acting project. What we're gonna.
I think the great thing is that, you know, this film premiered a while ago, and just due to circumstances and COVID in the world, we've sort of had a chance to spend time writing, which has been, you know, has been great in terms of having the time and space to really put the effort in that it takes to make, you know, to make a working script. So luckily we've had the chance to put those things together. So hopefully when filming begins again in earnest, we'll be back out there.
Now, Kyle, I want to finish up with the most important question I'm going to ask today. What is your dog's name?
This is Gertie. She's been in the back.
Hi, sweetie. How are you? Well, welcome to the Milton Film Festival. You're our first guest.
To be honest, she'd be more interesting than me. I should have just had her on camera.
Listen, most dogs are more interesting than all of us. But listen, guys, really, I appreciate your time. It's been great talking to you. Thank you for, I know you've probably done a lot of these things, but thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. So Kyle, Marvin, and Michael Covino, good luck in your future projects. And please don't forget the all-important Milton Film Festival when you have another film out. So
You got it.
Totally.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.
Right.